Time's up. Have your own.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, code it.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi.
It's not
Like
playing
my
it
father before me.
Chevron 1, code it.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi. Like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Knock them while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy. Welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we talk about movies we like. And sometimes we don't like, but we generally try to enjoy ourselves in the midst of this insanity that we call modern day entertainment. Jed, nobody else wants to hang out with us, apparently. So it's just you and me.
Apparently.
Apparently not. No one took up the call when I put it out there. So it's just us tonight and the chat. But you know what? They don't matter. The chat is what matters. Nobody else matters. It's the chat. Chat, we love you. Welcome. We're glad to see you guys here. Hail, Legatus, Legion. This is one of my mods, one of my regulars. Hail to Bridget. Yes, Legatus answered your questions. 1963, the second James Bond movie by the only Sean Connery, the greatest James Bond of all. Scrolling down. Hail, Algrim the Strong. Good evening to you, good sir. Hail, Kale. How you doing? Hail, Joseph Dredd. Hail, JB. Hail, anyone just chilling out and watching and not chatting. We're happy to have you with us this evening as we will go over, as I said, the second James Bond movie. Our first James Bond movie for the show. I chose to skip over Dr. No. While outstanding movie, I wanted to get to what I consider to be the true foundation of what made James Bond movies James Bond movie. That, for me, that's what From Russia with Love is. So that I felt like that's where I wanted to start. And I love it all. I love it all, but I want to start with From Russia with Love. Jed, I believe you said this was your first time seeing From Russia with Love.
This one specifically, I've seen Dr. No and several of the other James Bond movies, but yeah, I never got around to this one, so I'm definitely glad I had an excuse to watch it because it's such a good movie. It could never get made today. Like, they're having a woman manipulating another woman to be like who perverted sex slave.
And Kleb is gay. Kleb is obviously gay, but they don't need to have her come in and say, I'm gay. No, it's subtle stuff. touching Tanya's knee, massaging her shoulders, all these little things. It's there, but they don't need to come out and say it. A little bit of good old-fashioned show don't tell. Yeah, I mean, and Jed, this is perhaps the thirstiest of the James Bond movies out there. The women,
it's all because of Tatiana or whatever her name is.
Tanya.
So
Just call it Tanya.
Tanya.
Every woman, and this is, remember, this is the second James Bond movie. Every woman in this movie is horny. They're all horny, and of course, they're all horny for James, and that's what makes it awesome.
Well, and for anybody who says, "Oh, this is a practice in the male gaze, only the women are sexualized in this movie," they make up the most bullshit reason to get James Bond shirtless all the time. Like randomly, he walks into his hotel room and he immediately strips down to a towel.
He was going to take a bath. He was going to take a bath, and he left that water running. By the way, he leaves that water running when he goes.
And
to
that
have
was
sex
hot
with
water.
Tanya.
I noticed how fast the steam just exploded out of there. It's
Yeah.
like, I want water pressure and hot water that well. But yeah,
There's
a lot of shirtless Bond in this movie. There's some male sexualization, and
Sean
we're here
Connery
for
was
it.
a sex symbol. He was, and going back in time, still is a sex symbol. There's a reason the phrase said, "Every man wants to be him. Every woman wants to be with him."
Yes, that sternum bush was on point,
dude. Sean Connery is a hairy dude. He is a hairy.
Hairy.
What did I just do? I just went on my thing. God damn it! What the hell just happened? Oh, I jostled my freaking thing. Hang on. Got to put the background back up. Jostled my USB. Technical difficulties, folks. We're not Friday night. We're not Friday Night Tights level of technical dysfunction, but we still have our own dysfunction. God damn it! It did it again.
You fucking did it.
And this thing is hitting my elbow. Keeps hitting it. What the hell? And I need it. It's the background. There. Stop. I need to turn off my controller so I don't lose my battery on it. All right. There. My elbow. It's sticking right out. My elbow keeps hitting it. Off.
It's a great background.
There we go. Finally. All right. Yeah, boomer. Okay, fine, whatever. Moving on. Back to the
You're right, JB. He did lose a lot of that sex appeal after his death.
Yeah, because he's a corpse. I get it. No, but all right. So yeah, but yeah, and Sean Connery's a hairy dude. That first moment we get him when he's with Sophia, which again, they did this early on. I guess second movie, nice little carryover from Dr. No, his first conquest at the very beginning of the movie before he goes off to Jamaica. Sophia, yeah, he's just having a good time with her, chilling out, and it's just like, yeah, all right.
And she wants it bad.
Again, she was thirsty too. She was thirsty too.
I was laughing through all the thirsty scenes. There were so many of them.
I mean, this is the beginning. This movie, again, this is why I said From Russia with Love is the foundation for all things James Bond going to the future. The sexual innuendos begin in this movie. It starts with Sophia, but I'm starving. Yeah, you're starving for something, all right. You're hungry. You're hungry for some Bond. That's what you're hungry for. But I mean, but again, this is the foundation for a lot of reasons. Like I said, one, it gets the particular kind of dry humor that becomes James Bond. We get the gadgets begin in this movie, and at the same time,
cool.
And at the same time, you get the idea of an enemy, a real enemy. Spectre is officially introduced. Yes, Spectre is hinted at in Dr. No, but in this movie, Spectre is officially introduced. We see Blofeld, but we don't know it's Blofeld. He's just number one.
Yeah, we never see his face, right?
You don't see it. Getting into future James Bond, you see Blofeld's face.
Well, I mean, in
twice.
this movie.
No,
yeah.
You don't see a Blofeld face until You Only Live Twice. And there's a lot of controversy over that, over why does he look like that? And then in Diamonds Are Forever, he looks completely different. And then, of course, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, he's Telly Savalas.
And we're not talking about the 2015 Blofeld.
No, we're talking about actual real Blofeld. Ernst Stavro
Real James
Blofeld.
Bond.
Real James Bond. Ernst Stavro Blofeld, the real mastermind of Spectre. But he gets introduced in the movie. But that, honestly, personally, just going forward, I don't believe they ever should have shown his face. Ever.
Yeah.
Even though we see him in You Only Live Twice, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and in Diamonds Are Forever, we never should have seen Blofeld's face. He was much more intimidating off camera. It was much cooler. That's why he's great in this
It was
one.
very intimidating.
And when we see him again in Thunderball, it was great. Just his voice and the cat. I mean, yes, it's a meme, but it's the original meme. It's the original of the evil guy holding the cat. It was the birth of it. But what else we get in this? It also is the well, we don't get some things. We don't get cool car until Goldfinger. We don't get car stuff. Bond in the car doesn't happen until Goldfinger. We also and we really get James being a ladies' man in this movie. That's what real. I mean, in Dr. No, there was Sophie in the beginning, and then Ursula Andress's character throughout it. But in this one, he is just all they're everywhere. Every turn, we start off with Sophia. Then he arrives in Istanbul, and we get to the gypsy camp, and then he has Tanya for the rest of the movie. But it's just it's so good. And it's written so well. The lines, the dialogue, everything over, and Connery just delivers everything perfectly. There's no missed beat. I mean, we're gonna skip around. That's how we're gonna do it tonight. In later on the train, after my boy Karimbe gets killed, my boy Karimbe. Every time I watch the movie, I hope and pray he's not going to die. Every time. It's one of those things like, maybe he won't die this time. No, Karimbe's dead. Now I'm sad. But after Karimbe dead, he has a switch has been flipped in Bond. He goes from, okay, I'm a little carefree. I'm dealing with this, but nope, now I'm doing this. Walks in the room. Because at that point, he doesn't know that Spectre's been manipulating everything. And he walks in there and thinks maybe Tanya has had a hand in the death of Karimbe with that Russian security officer in there. And he's got this look on his face as you just, oh shit, that's not, he looks like he's being pleasant, but there's this look in his eyes like, oh, you lie to me now. And he tries to get some information out of her, which he thinks she might have, and she thinks she's lying. He just slaps her right across the face.
Oh, yes.
It's like I have been loving you, but I am able to take my lust for you and put it aside. I am now the spy on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I will slap you if I have to, because I think
he's not a simp.
Now you are now possibly in the enemy category, and you do not show mercy to your enemies in the world of spy game. You don't. And then, of course, she goes into simp mode. I love you. I love you. I love you. And then he realizes, okay, I broke her, and she's not going to give me anything out of this now.
Well, what surprised me is she didn't build up any resentment towards him because she was told to do whatever he wanted. And so her change to being on his side at the end of the movie really just speaks to how much game he's got in the bedroom, because that clearly overrode a woman's natural instinct to not like the person she's been manipulated into sleeping with. So, man, he's got a powerful...
That's the beginning of that. That's the beginning of James Bond. And here's how great the writing is overall, even in his early days. That begins the trick of James Bond, once he loves a woman, converts her to the side of good. And when we get to Thunderball one day and review that, there's a moment where there's a Spectre agent, and he sleeps with her knowing she's a Spectre agent. And she goes, what? Did you think because you would sleep with me, I would suddenly hear angels singing and be converted to the good? No, I happen to like who I work for, Mr. Bond. And you're not going to convert me. So they even are able to make fun of that own trope 2 movies later in Thunderball. That's why it's so good. But right there, that begins that trend of he's going to win them over if they're sort of on that side. I mean, it's just so good. It's so good in terms of the portrayal of a man. He is a man. I mean,
there's no doubt about it.
Having first seen this first time in the gypsy camp after the big fight, and he says to the gypsy chief says, when Karimbe says he'll grant you anything, goes, can you stop the girl fight? Because remember, the gypsy camp starts with the girl fight over the chief's son, who's going to marry the chief's son, and he goes, I want to stop the girl fight, and the guy's like, okay, fine, but now you have to decide it. And they come to him that night, And he's there for like a day or more, I think. He wasn't just there a night.
Yeah.
Karimbe had to go and get some information and come back. And don't tell me he didn't have both those gypsy ladies. Don't tell me. Did you feel that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's obviously what happened.
Yeah. He had because when he leaves, they're like, "Oh, you're leaving? Don't leave me." The looks on their faces is like, "Bye."
It's so funny.
Bye. Oh no, you're leaving because you are the best. Thirsty.
It was really, really over the top, but I loved every second of it in this movie. And speaking of the gypsy fight, I loved the way that he operated within the actual fight itself.
Yeah, it's great.
Because everybody else was like pure chaos. What the hell's going on? And he's just very casual. Like, I am in control of the situation. I'm not afraid. I am a businessman. I'm a spy. I'm not a trench warrior. And so
that fight. He does a lot of great stuff. My only complaint about that fight is, unless he swapped out a clip, they lost count of his bullets for Walther. They lost count of the count of his bullets. There's only 8 shots in a Walther PPK. Only 8 shots. To quote from The Living Daylights, "You've had your 8, now I'll have my 80. So that's how I always remember that. They lost count of the bullets, but I'm gonna let that go. We weren't on him the entire time. He might have swapped out a clip. We don't know. But you're right. I was watching that specifically this time. He's going through it carefully, taking the shots, and carefully, I'm going to just punch that guy, help out that guy as I walk by. I'm going to trip a guy as he's coming by me. I'm going to grab a dude's knife and pull it out of his hand. I'm going to cut this tent so it collapses on guys. I'm going to kick this cart. He's just doing nice, casual, carefully shot moments of, yeah, I'm doing that. Now, of course, here's one of the most interesting things about this movie, and we'll bring it up since we're talking about the gypsy fight. James Bond is in our lexicon of heroes. He's one of our ultimate heroes out there. Complete badass, always finds a way out of trouble. But this movie, when you realize it, he is at mercy several times of several things, or he doesn't realize he's going to get killed. Like during the gypsy fight, it begins where Grant, our Spectre assassin, has been following him this whole time. He saves his life.
Yeah.
And for me, as a younger man, I was a little annoyed. I always I want Bond to always never be taken off guard. But then you realize when you sit back and you watch this, it humanizes him just a little bit. As far as
he's just a man at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean,
he's not Spider-Man. He doesn't have spider senses. He can be snuck up on. He's still like the best of the best, but human fallibility is still very much an issue, and that creates stakes. Stakes are important.
Yeah.
He can't always be up to the task. As much as we want him to be a badass, sometimes he can't be good enough, and that is a very important aspect to facilitate character arcs and character growths. It's the classic hero's journey. Like at the beginning of the movie, a established hero fails to beat the bad guy. They go on an emotional journey and arc, and at the end, they can beat it. Kind of ripped off poorly in Black Panther, but that's a great example of it where you fail at the beginning. It's a good thing that heroes fail sometimes. And this movie was a great example of how to do it well.
And
without
cucking him.
Nutting. Yeah.
Yeah, without cucking him. I mean, he is at the mercy. He's constantly being, to quote Grant was his guardian angel throughout the movie. He saved him at Gypsy Camp, killed a guy here, killed a guy there. But then when he's facing Grant on the train, when they finally come face to face, and Grant in his arrogance is taunting him. He's got him dead. He had James dead to rights, knocked him out, gun on his face right here. But he wanted him to wake up because he wanted to taunt the great James Bond, wanted him to know that he had been beaten, wanted him to literally kiss his feet before he killed him. But he takes that time to him, and James knows, okay, I am in deep-ass trouble, but I'm going to play for time. I'm going to play for time till this guy gives me an opening. And here's payoff. What do we always talk about payoff with stuff, Jed? Payoff is what we expect when we get good stories.
Absolutely. It's an essential aspect of talented writing.
And this is the payoff for the first Bond gadget saving the day. Because we go all the way back to the beginning when for just literally less than 5 minutes, we get introduced again. Foundation, we get introduced to Q and Q Branch for the very
Mm-hmm.
first time. When we come back to it in Goldfinger, you get the full. Then they decided, oh shit, we're gonna make Q a big ass thing when we get to Goldfinger. But now in Q
Mm-hmm.
Branch, it's just we got Q Branch. He's not even called Q. It's just we've had Q Branch come up here and nice little thing put together for you. We get the suitcase. The entire gadget for the movie is the suitcase and all its little tricks and whistles, and of course the folding sniper rifle, which my stepdad had one of those when I was a kid.
Ooh.
It was really cool. He had the stock sniper rifle. It was cool as shit, dude.
Dude, I love that scene where they just casually walk up and they're like, that lady, she's got a big mouth on her.
Yeah.
And then they just casually put the sniper together and it's like, here, try this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought that scene was hilarious.
It's great. Oh, it's great. Here's why I want to talk about that little mini arc specifically, which involves the Gypsy Camp. But let me finish what I was saying, though. So you get Q Branch again, Foundation. First time the suitcase is your gadget for the movie, especially the tear gas canister, which would stop somebody from getting into your spy briefcase. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And the trick. And in that moment, in the end there, in the final confrontation on the train, James realizes, okay, this guy, I could get him if I can just lure him into opening the briefcase. And it's not even his thought patterns. We just realized that when he asks for the cigarette and the bribe to get the cigarette, and he shows him the I think James had a double reason, because in the previous scene when he went through the original operative, the other agent's briefcase that Grant stole, there was a gun in there. So James knew that if he could get into that briefcase, one, there was a gun in there, he could get to it because he'd been disarmed.
Mm-hmm.
But two, he had a backup plan, tricking Grant into opening it and having the canister go off.
Right.
So he's playing for time right there. Like we said, he is beaten right there. He's beaten. He's a half a second. He's going to get tortured until he's forced to kiss his feet, and then he'll be killed. But no, he finds a way out of it, because that's what James Bond does. Uses his brain. And then we get a gritty ass fight in that train cabin, man. There's nothing
claustrophobic
fancy.
Fights are so underrated, man. I love the claustrophobic fights.
And it shifts back and forth for who's winning, and that's why it's a great fight. It's just two guys going at it, nothing fancy, throwing punches, haymakers, kicking, grappling. It's great. And then here's again payoff, setup. The movie opens with Grant killing a pretend Bond at the Spectre train on Spectre Island, on the Spectre training camp, and his thing is the Garrett in the watch. That's his trick.
Set up
That's his thing, and he chokes the fake James Bond in the beginning of the movie, and then at the end, when he goes for it, he's getting James. And what does James do? He's got one trick left in the suitcase: the pop out throwing knife. Gets him in the arm, takes it, and reverses the choke, and kills Grant with his own signature kill weapon. Setup, payoff, foreshadowing.
It's simple. It's so simple, but done so well. Like, I wouldn't call this a complicated movie, like the mystery aspect of it. It's not complicated. It just gets the simple things so right.
Yeah.
It just nails them perfectly.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be complicated.
There were a few things that I didn't love. Like, I didn't like the fight scene at the end with number 3. It was kind of weird to me how they...
That was the test of Tanya's final loyalty right there. Because he had, even though he had to dodge Kleb's poison shoot dagger, he with that chair up against the wall, he had it in control. She wasn't going anywhere. She was on. You could see in his posture, he's going. But then it was basically worried. Tanya's going like this, and is okay. What's Tanya gonna do? Tanya still doesn't know that Kleb is Spectre. She thinks she's still from Smash, and she doesn't know. And then Tanya chooses to blast Kleb.
Yeah,
and so that was just the test of loyalty.
Something that I thought of during that scene that I would have really liked as an alternate way of doing it, to simultaneously show James Bond he's not super trusting of Tati. What did you say?
Her name is Tatiana, but nicknamed Tanya. It's
Tanya. Saying like he doesn't 100% trust her, but wants to test her. And I know we kind of already done all the briefcase deals, but he moves the encryptor or whatever into his suitcase with the tear gas canister in it rather than where it was originally. So if the original suitcase gets stolen, he can tell whether or not he can trust Tanya or not. And that's like, and he puts the canister in there or something like that. I think just doing a little bit of a switcheroony on those two suitcases because they're relatively a similar size. And I think that would have worked a lot better and been a better way to get rid of number 3. And shown just James Bond being a little bit more proactive because still, Tanya, she hadn't necessarily proven herself, and this was the point to do it. But he should have still taken precautions because he didn't know, right? He was still, this was the scene that proved he could trust her, but he didn't know previously. So if he had put some precautions into place just in case she wasn't trustworthy, I think that would have just shown a little bit more intelligence by him. That's something that I really wished when I saw that scene.
I've been saying smash my whole life. I'm not going to stop now. I've been saying it's smash my whole life. It's one of those things. I've been mispronouncing my whole life. I'm not going to start now. It's not going to stop now. It's just the way it is. Talking about the story though, overall, like you said, it's not a complicated story. It's a simple spy movie. There's not supposed to be mystery in this stuff. There's just supposed to be action, adventure, and the character-driven stuff. But there's a great little thing right in the middle of it, beginning with Grant messing with the delicate balance that was established when Karimbe gives us a necessary exposition of how they play the Cold War in 1963 Istanbul. When Grant upsets that balance, it creates an attempt to kill Karimbe. And that introduced Kirilenko and all that kind of stuff. You realize that little arc where they go to the gypsy camp and then they go after Kirilenko, that is completely separate from
very self-contained.
But it's a mini arc, but you know what it is? It's there to get us to know Karimbe. And I love Karimbe. I am, like I said earlier, I am so sad whenever he dies because he's just such a nice, quickly developed character. He's affable. He's likable.
And it's so tragic because we don't actually see it. It's just James walking in, turning him over, and it's just
the knife in his back, and for a minute he thinks they actually killed each other. He still doesn't know that Spectre's been pulling the strings the whole time, but it's tragic, and it's just I feel so bad because the last thing we hear from Karimbe, he's just gonna, I've had a fascinating life. Would you like to hear it? Oh, you would? Oh, I'm going to tell you a nice story as I just sit here and verbally torture you with my life story until we get to the stop. And then, while James goes off and has a little makeout session with Tanya. But I mean, it's such a good little mini thing to set up Karimbe because you know what? They want you to feel bad when he's gone. And it works because as our second outing of a James Bond movie, this is one of the first times we get like a real companion, a colleague to work with James in a movie. And they share a quick life and death situation. They become fast friends, and they're really great together. And it's so. I mean, as one who always wants a good story, you felt good about this little story in there, didn't you? This little side.
Oh, absolutely. In future, when I talk about The Last of Us, about that episode 3 that literally makes no difference to the overall story, I'm going to use this as an example of doing it right. It's like, we didn't necessarily need that self-contained arc inside this movie, but it actually does benefit the movie from a character perspective.
Exactly.
Because, and only a simple few changes could make that episode still work within the context of the story. The big one is make Bill survive. So when he does die, helping Joel and Ellie, his death means so much more because he's moved past all this terrible stuff, just like they did with this character in From Russia with Love. It's not complicated. So self-contained stories are not an issue. It's just when they're done right.
Does it work with the story? Because you've got Karimbe, who was made out to be a family man. And his mission in life,
he's got so many sons
because he's got a lot of sons because he got busy with a lot of ladies apparently. Because that lady who was thirsting after him at that point, she was not his wife; she was his current piece of side ass. And so I mean, but then you can feel when that one particular son gets the news his father's dead. You feel for him. It's like, yeah, your dad's dead. And it's like, damn. And you realize he's got a lot of sons and they're going to feel upset. At least in my thought processes, they're going to feel bad about this, man. They just lost their dad. And we saw these intelligent spies in training all over the place. It's like
Mhm.
it's good stuff.
Well, I love that moment when James told the one son that his dad was dead because modern Hollywood doesn't seem that you can have competent characters reacting to a tragic situation while emotionally reacting simultaneously. It's always one or the other. It's like, no, this scene is a perfect example of you can be competent and mourn at the same time because he's obviously dumbfounded and struck deep that his father's dead. But James is immediately like, all right, we got to do this and this and this. And the son's like, all right, I got this. I got you. He's still competent enough to move forward while
Mhm.
grieving simultaneously. It's not a complicated thing, and it's all up to the actor.
But then they cap it perfectly when James is going to walk away, stops, and realizes, wait, I have to give him his father's belongings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a nice little, it's like, here, you're going to want these. And he's like, thank you. And then you turn, you can just see the son. He's got to do his job. But the guy that got to play that son, you could see good emoting of, I'm heartbroken, but I'm going to go do my job. And then just looking at his dad's things. It's like, okay, close it, moving on. And it's just, it works. Like you said, it is a great example that a mini arc within a movie that's only a couple of hours long can work, but when it's done with a purpose to establish a character that's going to mean something. And if that character is going to die, it's going to be a death that you're going to feel at the end. And they accomplish that perfectly. And also they give you a really great fight scene at the gypsy camp. A lot of great stuff there. And also the interactions, the best interactions, in my opinion, are between James and Karimbe in this movie. They're the best interactions.
I would agree. Besides the thirsty scenes, I would agree.
Oh yeah, thirsty scenes. That's just funny. That's just funny from my perspective. Yep, these, especially looking at it specifically with the intention of talking about it tonight. I've always known, but it really jumped out at me today how thirsty all those ladies were, and especially though now. This again is the beginning of the Bond franchise, the second movie, and the opening theme. This is the beginning. The original Dr. No just had the James Bond theme as the opening theme, and now they did it's an actual song from Russia with Love, but they didn't use any of the lyrics in the opening. They just had the music mixed in with the classic theme, but they were just doing a lot of words and a lot of title stuff. So that in the following movie, when we get to Goldfinger, that begins the naked ladies behind.
We got some sexy ladies in this one.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They knew where they were going, because at one point, especially, I was watching a nice crisp and clean Blu-ray today when James goes in the apartment when he gets back from Gypsyland, after having fun with both those ladies, and Tanya is there waiting for him. In half a second, when you catch that clip, the chick who played Tanya, she is butt naked, getting into that bed. You see some goodies as she's rushing to get into those covers. You see some goodies on my nice high def TV and my nice crisp clean Blu-ray today. Oh, I saw it. I saw it all.
well, when you're talking about the opening credits, I want to talk about that song, because back in the day, they had talented musicians make the individual movie theme songs. Like at the end of the movie, I loved that theme song. It sounded very Frank Sinatra-esque.
I think it was. I know Manilow does Thunderball. He might have done. Who sang from Russia with Love?
But I don't want some Billie Eilish or Lady Gaga.
Oh, it's Matt Monro. Sorry, it was Matt Monro.
Yeah, I don't want shit like that. I want someone who sounds like Frank Sinatra. It just reminded me of Frank.
They didn't get Sinatra eventually. They got his daughter Nancy, who You Only Live Twice. It's an okay one. I like part of that one, but when you go into Goldfinger next, you get Shirley freaking Bassey for Goldfinger. You get her back for Diamonds Are Forever, and then you get Barry Manilow for Thunderball.
Music. It matches the tone. I want it to match the tone of James Bond, like a sophisticated gentleman. What does Billie Eilish say about sophisticated gentlemen?
Nothing.
There's nothing about Billie Eilish that makes any sense with that.
Well, we do get later on, like in GoldenEye, it's Tina Turner, but that's Tina Turner. We're okay with Tina Turner, GoldenEye. But I mean, again, this movie begins the tradition of the flashing opening sequence, and it begins it.
Yeah, the 60s through 80s, they tried to be experimental with their opening credits because, they're kind of annoying, honestly. Like, back in the day, you watch a movie, even Magnificent Seven, one of my favorite Westerns, you just have to sit there for the first 15 minutes and nothing's happening while you're just watching the credits. And it's like, please put this at the end like we do nowadays. But like this movie, try to make it interesting. Star Wars had the
Mhm.
opening crawl instead. Like, just be experimental with it. If you got to do it, you got to do it. Just
And
do
then,
something cool with it.
and like you said, then they're going to get at the time great talent to sing these openers.
Mhm.
I mean, Thunderball is one of my favorite openers of all time. I love Thunderball, and I love it. Yeah, yeah, I don't like. I'm not a fan of For Your Eyes Only or View. I know A View to a Kill is everybody loves that one for the fun part of that one. My number one is Thunderball, and then Goldfinger.
No, he's just
Uh,
talking about the themes right now, not the
well, I think
movies.
he's what he liked. I'm saying what he liked. I'm just saying
Yeah.
I also like Spy Who Loved Me. I love Spy Who Loved Me. Nobody does it better. But again, this movie starts a lot of what become standards for James Bond traditions.
Mhm.
And it's great. And that's why I
Well,
wanted to start with this one, really. That's why I wanted to start with it.
yeah. Well, and that's a important thing that you see a lot of these iconic franchises. Like with Doctor Who, as much as I love the first two Doctors, they're not really established Doctors. It's the third one that really gets a lot of
Mhm.
the things right that we know and love. The companions, they get a unit, they get a lot of the monsters, they iron things out. Doctor Who isn't really Doctor Who until the third or fourth Doctor. And kind of interesting how the early years kind of like a small retcon in a
Mhm.
way.
That's why and I'll say this now and I'll say it again when we get to it. That's why Goldfinger is my favorite Bond movie because it encapsulated it with Goldfinger. Everything that makes James Bond is present in Goldfinger. But they needed from Russia with Love to get us there. They needed all the elements we've spoken of so far. The not just locking us into someplace like Jamaica, giving us a city like Istanbul to be in, and then moving us
I
to
love
Asia.
Istanbul. Any
Yeah.
movie or story that goes there, I'm interested because back in the day, Istanbul was a very cultured place. Just like the same deal with Damascus back in the day. If you go back there in an ancient story, I'm interested because they're pretty badass places. They
But I
used
like
to
the
be.
idea of they're taking us to really big locales, let's just say big locales. And it begins with this, where we spend literally most of the movie in Istanbul until we get on the train and we're trying to get out of Istanbul, get back to Europe. But here's another great thing. Here's where I thought again the structure of the movie was brilliant. We talked about this a couple movies ago with something we watched. How it's almost 20 minutes into the movie before we even see James.
Yeah.
It's all build up where we get it's all Spectre for the first 15-20 minutes and Tanya. That's it. And
Well,
then it's great.
and big aspect of the next several movies, it's kind of important to get some exposition out of the way to build their characters. It's
Mhm.
kind of an important thing to do. So,
Yeah, so
yeah,
understand
definitely
that
an interesting way.
we're moving into it was important, like you said, we're moving into a wider. That's when they realize they've got a franchise on their hand because they've decided
Yeah.
we're not just going to stop here. We're going to adapt more of Ian Fleming's books because
Mhm.
at the end of this movie it says James Bond will return in Goldfinger. So they already
That
had the plan.
surprised me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that. It's like, wow, this is this is thinking ahead. Everyone acts like Marvel's the first franchise to ever think
Yeah.
ahead when they made the MCU. It's like, no, James Bond, apparently, they made these three movies back to back and they knew what the plan was.
Yeah, I mean, they only took like 2 years off. I mean, I believe Dr. No was 62. Yeah,
Yep.
from Rush with Love 63 and Goldfinger 64. So they just boom, 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 got them done. And like I said, by the time you get to Goldfinger, Connery owns it completely. He's completely comfortable in his skin as James. And you realize they've built it properly. You had everything was great about Dr. No as the character of James is increased in From Russia with Love. And we get the dialogue is so much crisper in From Russia with Love and in the exchange. And they realize one of the other things, and this is what I love. I always love this, and this is something that most of the Bonds do, the classiness with the attire. They realized, okay, we need to keep him in the jacket and tie as often as possible because that's
Mhm.
great. Because after the fight with Grant in the train, when he's done, after he's won, takes a moment, fixes his tie.
They try to replicate that in the Craig movies, and it always pisses me off because it's at an
Yeah.
awkward moment. Like you've just ripped a train in half, you land. Fuck off, man.
Mm.
You're not Connery.
No,
I don't know.
only one
I
that
despise the Craig movies.
So do I.
besides
So do I.
Casino Royale.
So do
Besides
I.
Casino.
Because Daniel Craig was not James Bond. Fight me.
Yeah,
Anybody can fight me on
Casino
that.
Royale is not a James Bond movie. I find it as a good action movie, but it's not a James Bond
No.
movie.
But and the only one that kind of also pulled it off was when it's in The World Is Not Enough. Brosnan during the opening sequence when he's doing the speedboat chase underwater. He fixes his tie while he's underwater because it's Pierce Brosnan. You
gotta love that.
pull it
Besides
off.
Sean Connery for being the GOAT in the original, Brosnan's my favorite Bond.
Brosnan's number 2. For me, it's Connery, Brosnan, Dalton. Those are my top 3. I'm okay with. I don't. I only like 2, maybe 3 Roger Moore Bond movies. You got Spy Who Loved Me, Living Day. Not Living Daylights. That's Dalton. Live and Let Die. And you could drop in a third. There might be another third one there, but those are the 2 I always do want to watch.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Timothy Dalton one, but I'm excited to because he played Rassilon in End of Time.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people shit on it, but Living Daylights is great. I love Living Daylights. I love Living Daylights. I mean, Dalton got. Problem is, Dalton got the role when there was a little bit of Bond fatigue, and at least that's how I always looked at it. And because at the time also it was supposed to go to Pierce Brosnan, but because of Remington Steele, he couldn't get out of his contract for being Remington Steele, so he couldn't be James Bond then. So they went to Dalton. And Dalton was great. I really like Living Daylights. License to Kill is okay. I think they should not have done License to Kill. They should have done a different second movie for Dalton. But Living Daylights, I love Living Daylights. That one's a great one. Great cast, fantastic stuff. I love that movie. I love that theme too.
Yeah. I just wish that what's his bucket? Christopher, why can't I remember his name? Sauerman in Lord of the Rings.
Christopher Lee, man with the golden gun.
Christopher Lee. Yeah, yes. He's apparently the man who James Bond was based off of. He's cousins with Ian Fleming. I would have loved to at least see him play James Bond in one movie early on because he was still young enough to do it. Because he was the inspiration for it related to Ian Fleming. I think it would have been really cool because he's a great actor and I think he would have pulled it off. But
yeah, at one point, later on, we've covered more movies. I'll give a nice little theory that I have about what each of the Bonds from Connery to Moore to Dalton to Brosnan represent. I'm leaving out what's his name from Her Majesty's Secret Service because Lazenby. I'm leaving out George Lazenby because he only did one movie, and Her Majesty's Secret Service was when Connery was was on the outs with Broccoli, and he didn't come back for on her. If Sean Connery had been on Her Majesty's Secret Service with Telly Savalas as Blofeld, that would have been the most perfect James Bond movie ever. It would have been. It would have been very good. My mom still likes On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I hate it. I can't watch it because all I think is this should have been Connery. It should have been Connery. It should have been, and then they brought him back for Diamonds and to finish it out. But it's just I said Lazenby, guys. I said it before the chat. I did get it out before the chat got me there. I got it out. But I'll give my theory on the different attitudes of Bond as he evolves from one actor to the next and how they represent a sort of different persona, much like maybe like Jed, like the doctors represent different personas every time the doctor changes, how the changing Bond represents a different thing, a different personality, but based upon his history, because there are things in there from Connery all the way to Brosnan that tell you it's one Bond. It's not simple. There's always that stupid theory. Oh, they just kept giving them the same code name. No, it's the same Bond, and they hit it home in License to Kill that it was the same Bond. That Timothy Dalton was the same Bond that Lazenby was, which means they're all the same Bond. But I mean, so
until Craig when they did a full
reboot.
Craig
when they shat all over it. But we're deviating from Russia with Love, but it's kind of okay because there's only two of us,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the stuff at large because we're gonna now that we've opened the door, we're gonna continue down the Bond pathway. Now we're gonna keep going down it, and we can because again, this is also a simpler. As far as the early Connery movies go, as great as one is, it is sort of simpler in its stakes. This was more a bit of a spy chase thriller or game trick rather than taking on. Yes, they kind of did in Dr. No. There was a world threatening thing because Dr. No was messing with nuclear energy, but when they go to Goldfinger, they kind of go back to kind of grander scope things. So this is kind of a more of a grounded Bond episode when you think about it, with a chase, the attempt to get the Lecter and the chase to get the Lecter back and to escape with it. It's nice little moves in this one direction. It's never going to take any juking and jutting. There's no big reveals of who might be the actual mastermind or who's our first Bond girl, who's going to be our next Bond girl. Because that was the thing that Roger Moore eventually did. You'd get one Bond girl in the beginning, and then you get another one kind of later on in some movies.
Yeah,
that would happen with Moore a lot. But there's a theme created from Russia with Love, like I said, that they're going to now tell us these stories where this guy who just can get the job done, not always with perfection, but the world's going to get saved, or this plot's going to get stopped, or this thing's going to get done, and it's going to be okay. And he's going to do it with a smile. He's going to do it without apologies. That's what that's what makes this, I think, so offensive. Real James Bond is so offensive to the SJWs and the woke-tards because it's unapologetically masculine.
Oh, absolutely.
At one point when they're in the cabin, slaps her on the ass. Beginning of Goldfinger, there's an ass slap. And just could do it. And you know what? Ladies liked it back then too. Those girls.
Most ladies I know would still like it. It's James freaking Bond.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You go to a young lady and say, or a lady of any kind, say, yeah, Connery in his prime, Connery and in his prime, Brosnan are going to role play James Bond with you. Yes, please. The answer is yes, please every time. They'll say that they'll be like, that's my cheat. I want that to be my cheat, and I go, okay, then I'm going to get my cheat with particular fantasy girl as well. So I mean that's what it's going to be because the women loved it. Masculinity. Show me a real woman that is not impressed by the masculinity of James Bond.
Well, we have a more recent example that proves it. It's female audiences weren't as big in Wonder Woman as they were with Aquaman. You bring a sexy man to the table and you'll get a big female audience. James Bond proves it. Aquaman, as rough as that movie is, that movie proves it as well. Women like masculine men. It's crazy. I know, right? It's almost like it's been that way for all of human history.
Well, Bridget, you appreciate the good stuff then. You appreciate the good stuff. Don't let them give you grief. Don't let them give you grief. But it's just, I want. Well, actually, no. You know what I want? I'm kind of okay if they never make any more James Bond movies at this point, because the only way they can do it is if they need to choose the right guy. They're not going to do it. They're not going to hire Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill would be. I know we say this about a lot of things. Henry Cavill would be a perfect fit for Bond right now.
But the Man from U.N.C.L.E. proves it. That's a great movie.
They would need to reconnect it to everything to, and I say this in every chat, you can stay with you or not. Original James Bond ends with The World Is Not Enough. It ends there. The Die Another Day didn't happen. Die Another Day was terrible. See, I can say there's bad real Bond movies. No, Die Another Day was terrible. You got to connect it back to that original timeline. That's where you have to go. You have to acknowledge that this is the James Bond that existed in those eras, and he's just there. But they're never going to do that. They're going to try another reboot. They're going to try another refresh.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge still involved.
Still?
Well, it went to Amazon, and that's her. That's her origin. Amazon is in love with her.
Also, Barbara Broccoli is not her father. She's not her father. She doesn't have the skill to really pull it off that he did, and she cares more about the agenda, I guess. I don't know. But From Russia with Love, it's fun. It hits the story beats. And, God, we haven't really talked about the story. The story, like we said, is pretty simple.
Very simple.
Spectre wants to steal a Lecter decoding machine, which back then allowed Russia to mask its communications. And both the CIA and the British Secret Service, MI6, are trying to get one too. And Spectre's whole plan is to trick the MI6 into getting the Lecter and then steal it from them in transit back to England. That's it. And they use Kleb, who is a former, I mean, we should have probably said this at the beginning of the show, but whatever. And they have Kleb, who's defected from the Russian military, the Russian spy game, to working for Spectre, who is going to then use Tanya, who is in it for Mother Russia, to basically then get James in there to steal. They want to use James Bond to get it done. But the thing is, Kleb actually says it best when the guy, the number 5, who came up with the whole plan, when it all falls apart, he's blaming everybody else, saying, oh, my plan was perfect. It couldn't be this. And then Kleb actually says, yeah, but you didn't plan for James Bond. James Bond, you couldn't plan for that. He changed the rules on you. And that's something that is, I love that little aspect of it. I really do. It's just, yeah, you can't plan for James Bond. He's gonna take it to another level. He's gonna get it done. He's gonna do what he needs to do. And that's why I like that scene where after Karimbe is dead, he can turn off. That's one of the things I like about Connery's Bond. He can go from playful to serious just like that. And right there, I'm in the game. And we're playing for high stakes. Like I said, there's stakes. Lives are at stake. People have already died at this point. And I like it that there's the setup that Bond is the game changer. Bond is the game changer, and it works. It works. And that's why they hate it. They are saying the SJWs, woketards, because he represents everything that are great about men. Power, masculinity, confidence, the desire to love beautiful women. And that's something that, again, we only had the chick who played Sophia and Ursula Andress in the first movie, but this movie sets a stage. You get a parade of beautiful women, and it became a thing for decades. Are you a Bond girl? Are you going to be? It was a badge of honor to be a Bond girl, because the Bond girls got treated with respect. Would you agree to that?
As far as I'm aware, yeah, absolutely. Even in the Craig era, like Eva Green, she was a great Bond girl. Eva Green is pretty badass, and no one had any problem with her. I mean, she's known for nudity more than anything else, so being a Bond girl is kind of relatively normal compared to what she normally does. But yeah, it's not some offensive like, oh, your career's over, you're just a slab of meat now. It's like, no, fuck, you were a Bond girl. That's
Bond
badass.
Girls were characters. Bond
They
girls
had agency.
They had story arcs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll jump to the Moore era for a second. James Seymour as Solitaire in Live and Let Die. There's a whole arc there. And, of course, Jane Seymour. Ooh.
Oh, you can't get better than Jane Seymour.
I
Her
mean,
time travel movie is great. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's a great one.
No, but you could be a Bond. It was something to be respected for a long time. It wasn't an insult to a woman. It was, you're in a James Bond movie. You're a Bond girl. And that means you're going to use your feminine sexuality as something that's important. You're not just there. Being sexy Bond girl meant something. It was an acknowledgement that you are hot. You are hot. You're hot enough to be James Bond's temporary girlfriend in a movie. You're beautiful. I mean, that's why it's so annoying to see them now cast fugly chicks. I mean, Eva Green was hot, but after that,
well, I can't remember the chick's name from Quantum of Solace, but she was pretty hot. She was in Fast 2.
I remember her, and she was in something else I saw. I don't remember.
She was in Hitch. That's a great movie.
Eva
Mendes.
No, it wasn't Eva Mendes. Eva Mendes wasn't in.
Yeah,
No,
it's Eva Mendes.
Quantum of Solace. No, Quantum of Solace was some Russian chick. Wasn't Eva Mendes?
No.
Oh, no.
You're thinking of Spectre.
I didn't
'Cause
watch
it-
Spectre. I've only seen 1.5 Craig movies. I saw parts of Casino Royale, and I watched Quantum of Solace on an airplane without sound. And I thought, wow, I watched without sound and realized this isn't a Bond movie. That was I could say without that no idea of a Bond movie.
But yeah, it was Eva Mendes. I just looked it up. You're probably thinking of there's a French chick who's the Bond girl for like 3 of the movies that has a terrible Russian accent through it. She was in Spectre. She was in No Time to Die, and she wasn't in Skyfall. So I guess only 2. Yeah. Leah, I can't pronounce that French name. Joseph has it in the chat. That's what I'm talking about. The chick known for Blue is the Warmest Color. I don't know if you've heard of that movie.
No. Hang on.
You can barely call that a movie.
IMDb is being annoying right now. Hang on a second. Okay, so there's Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace. Yeah, this chick I'm thinking of. This chick right here. Here she is, Olga Kurylenko.
Oh, she's like the temporary Bond chick for the first 15 minutes of the movie. Yeah, she's barely in it.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so that's why you're saying that you only watched the first half. That makes sense now. Because he just fucks her at the beginning, and then it's Eva Mendes is the real one that has a story.
Okay, I thought she was there the whole time. No.
We just see like him stroking her back, and then he leaves, and that's it.
She's on the poster. So she's on the poster a lot there. Okay, whatever. Point is, she was okay. I'm okay with Eva Mendes, but I mean, 1962 to the mid 90s, those were Bond girls, all of them.
Yeah,
except for Grace Jones. I'm not into Grace Jones in View to a Kill. No, she's not really a Bond girl. She was a villain.
Yeah,
he did Turner. He did Turner, but hey.
Yeah. You did mention, well, we did talk about it earlier, the comparisons between Doctor Who and James Bond. They're more clear in Russia with Love than any of the other ones that I've seen, because the third Doctor, he's my favorite class of Doctor. People say he's the James Bond
of Doctor Who. Yeah, I've heard that.
He's very sophisticated. He has the hot women. He has all the gadgets. He has a nice car. I mean, it's bright yellow, but it is a nice car. And I just love it. It is so James. After watching Russia with Love, I was like, I could absolutely see John Pertwee playing the Doctor, or playing James Bond. He's a little bit older than Connery was. He was quite a bit older, but he could play a damn good James Bond. And I loved seeing it through all this, because this movie is, I get why people say it now. This is the movie that made people start saying that. And it was the same thing with the Companions. The Companions during his era were hot. And Tom Baker's era, I don't know if you ever knew who Leela was.
No, I didn't watch enough of Baker. I only watched certain parts of Baker. Whatever was on TV when I was a kid.
Yeah, she was the companion that he took from a primitive other world, and she literally was just wearing a loincloth, and she never changed. She's like, I will respect my people by being naked all the time. And she never changed. I love it.
That's a near impossible question, Bridget. I mean, that's so difficult for me to answer. I mean, you have, I like, God, what's her name? Shit, from Thunderball. The chick who played Domino in Thunderball. I suddenly can't remember her name. I used to know it a lot. I used to know it all the time. I like who played Domino in Thunderball. I like the chick who played Spectre, the Spectre agent in Thunderball. But then again, you can go all the way to Spy Who Loved Me. Barbara Bach is just so hot. She was smoking hot. It's
you
such
pussy galore.
Hey, she was hot, but she's not in my upper echelon. I mean, hey, she aged well. That chick who played Pussy Galore, she aged well as she got older. She went well. She aged got up the well. But there's so many hot Bond girls. You can't. I'd be happy with just about any of them, man.
I'm looking at the list right now. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to pick.
My memory turns off at 10 o'clock. That's when my memory turns off. My memory for names. I've been like that for my entire life. At a certain point in the night, I lose my memory for names. Yeah, I lose my point of names. We got too many names going on in my head right now. That's the problem. Cycling through too many things.
Halle Berry was a Bond girl.
Claudine Auger. I think Claudine Auger was Domino. I think it's Claudine Auger. I think that was it for Domino in Thunderball. Claudine Auger. She was really hot. But there's just so many. There just so many beautiful women were Bond
Halle
girls.
Berry is pretty hot in her Bond movie.
Halle Berry. Ever since Operation Codename Swordfish and I actually saw The Goods, it was like I was really disappointed. So she just dropped. It's like Terry Hatcher, even though she was a Bond girl for a minute before she got killed in shit, I just got it. What are those? Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies. Just like I can't look at her and really be like, eh. Besides, Die Another Day doesn't exist. It stops it. And World Is Not Enough for me. Die Another Day will never. That's why as I'm replacing my old Brosnan DVDs slowly, I finally replaced my Tomorrow Never Dies, which I had to because that one was damaged. It would skip over the 20 minutes out of the finale. Skip over it. I resist buying the Brosnan all-in-one pack. Like this is the Connery Part 1 all-in-one pack. I resist buying the Brosnan one because that would mean Die Another Day would be in my room. It would be in my home. And I don't want it in my home.
That one was so much better than the Craig ones.
Well, yeah, that's because of Pierce Brosnan. But still, that one is just... That's one thing where I'll say that I don't like James Bond being brought down to level. He should not have been captured by North Koreans. Like, no.
Oh, that was weird. The way that movie started is so weird.
Yeah, there's everything wrong with that movie. That movie's everything that was wrong with at the end there. They didn't know what they were doing anymore. But yeah, so I only need to replace a couple more of my primary collection. I need a new copy of World Is Not Enough. I need a new copy of License to Kill. I need a new copy of Spy Who Loved Me. I mean, I leave off a lot of the Roger Moore stuff because I'm not into. That's my least favorite era because it's too, to borrow Legato said, a little cheeky, a little too slapstick with Roger Moore. There's some really good Roger Moore movies, as I said, Live and Let Die, Spy Who Loved Me, but some of them are a little too silly at times for me, really. That's why I only get to me what I consider the best ones out of that for myself. But yeah, so back to the question. I can't choose one Bond girl. I can't. It's whoever's doing it for me the most at the moment, I would say. Whoever basically means who did I just watch? What Bond movie did I just watch and who am I thinking about? That's it. There's my answer. There's my final answer.
I'd probably have to say Jane Seymour. You can't beat Jane Seymour.
Again, I'll watch Live and Let Die, and I'll be right there with you. I'll watch Live and Let Die, and I'll be like, yep, I'm good for some Jane Seymour. Anyway, we're at an hour, and we have clearly gone way off from Russia with Love, which is fine. We were still talking James Bond, which is good. Which means, and I'm hoping next time we get around to it, when we get around to Goldfinger, hopefully we can get some more people on the panel so we can really talk about scenes. Because like I said, to me, Goldfinger is the perfect. You want to talk music? Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll talk music. John Barry. John Barry makes this movie is filled with the perfect Bond music as well. It's put in the right place. He created the theme going forward. He makes the Bond films. You're right, Legatus. He makes the Bond films, and he makes the theme, and he knows how to get it already there. And this movie also introduces for the rest of the Connery era a lot of the classic themes you're going to hear, like the chaotic battle music you hear during the Gypsy theme. That becomes a standard for future. It comes back in Thunderball, in the massive underwater fight scene. So the John Barry music, it's great. And again, the music only gets better going forward. So that's all I can really say. I mean, it notches it up there. But we've been going for an hour. We're only two of us. We can only do so much. And hopefully when we get around to Goldfinger eventually, we'll get some more people. We'll either have a third permanent member or we'll get some guests who want to talk Goldfinger. We could really dig down into it. Because like I said, that to me is the perfect Bond movie. It has everything that makes a Bond movie, including the car. We get the car. All right, then, Jed. Since it was my choice, you get to go first on your score. What do you score from Russia with Love?
It's so hard because I really enjoyed myself in this one way more than I have on any other James Bond movie that I've ever seen. And it, like you said, it inspired all the major key aspects of the Bond franchise. So I want to rate it really high because of stuff like that. But I still have the war, within myself for the subjective aspect.
Your objective button has to get the little voice objectivity has to
be. Because the story itself is really simple, and as much as they nail it right, I would have liked a little bit more complexity to the story and a little bit more of James, like I mentioned earlier, having precautions put in place in case that Tatiana was indeed a villain like he thought she might be. So I probably have to give this one an 8, and I feel bad giving it that low. Because it's so good. It's so John Pertwee. I love how Doctor Who it is.
I give it an 8.5 out of 10 because I take off a little technical things. Like I said, they lost track of how many Walter shots he got off. Little things. I feel that Grant, he's the prototype for future Bond villains. We don't really talk about Grant because there's not much to talk about. He's just a psychopath, and he's stalking him for most of the movie. But he's the prototype for the type of encounters you're going to get later on. We don't have
we have henchman archetype.
He's henchman archetype, and with Goldfinger, you get in the next movie, you get your real supervillain with a perfect henchman in Odd Job. So that's why I give it. I don't break it to the 9s because this is the prototype, the real prototype for all future Bond movies.
Yeah, it's still ironing some things out.
But when they get to Goldfinger, they get it all right. Everything is right in Goldfinger. So I give it an 8.5 out of 10 on my end. All right, then. We come to the end then. Jed, are you going to be here next weekend? Because I know you're not going to be here you're for Saturday. You'll be here Saturday, not Sunday.
Yeah,
okay.
We can't go super long because I will be leaving from the show to the airport to Florida. But yes, I intend to be here next week.
We could start earlier if you want. We could start a little earlier if you want next Saturday.
If we could do at least an hour or two.
We could start at 6 next Saturday. No problem. No problem. Okay. All right, guys. So next week, if you're watching this, we'll be starting at 6 p.m. Eastern for the show next Saturday because Jed, he's got to go to Florida because he's moving, which is a cool thing. So have you chosen a movie for next week?
I have.
Okay. I don't know it yet. I haven't heard it yet. So here we go.
Are you interested in a movie adaptation of the book that inspired naval stories as a genre and an adaptation of the book that inspired James T. Kirk as a character?
I'm intrigued. What do you got for me?
So I have the Hornblower movies. I love these movies. I grew up watching them. It's about the life
to me about these. Yeah,
it's about the life of a naval officer in the late 1700s in the British Navy during the French Revolution, during the initial part, and the Star Trek creators. They talked about how James T. Kirk was inspired by Horatio Hornblower, and I love that aspect because you can absolutely see it. I can't decide. There's 8 movies. I thought I might do the 4th one because that's my favorite, but we got to start at the beginning for you.
If you're going to start me off, start me at the beginning. Otherwise, I'll be annoyed. You got to start at the beginning then.
Well, they're mostly like individual, so we could do the 4th one and you'd be fine. But yeah, we got to start at the beginning with an even chance.
All right, email me the exact title and stuff like that, so I can.
It's on YouTube. I can just send you the link. To it.
Okay, all right. All right, cool. All right, I'll find it either way then. Yeah. All right, then. So
it inspired Master and Commander as well, and I believe all 8 movies are far superior to Master and Commander.
I was okay with that movie. I'm never a big fan of that movie.
Good.
I mean,
yeah.
I like the acting was good, but the movie itself was kind of.
See, that's where I'm at, especially since I'd seen the Hornblower movies that are so much better, so much more, and they're low budget too, comparatively, because it's an A&E BBC production, but it's on point, and there's so much politically incorrect stuff. Like how many slurs they come up with for French people is gold.
All right, then. So next week, the first of the Hornblower movies. What was it called?
An Even Chance.
An Even Chance. Next week, we'll be here at 6 p.m. Eastern, not 7:30 p.m., so that Jed cannot be under a time crunch. And we may have a guest, we may not. We're still working that out. We're still trying to figure out. We'll be honest. We're trying to figure out how to get a third person in here. We're figuring out the lack of a better term, a screening process, a trial process. We're still working on that, guys. So bear with us as we try to increase the panel once more. But thank you again, chat. You were great. I could tell everybody was talking about nothing but Bond since we got started. So we'll come back to another Bond movie not too far in the future, I'm sure, because this is always a fun thing to talk about. We want to thank everybody for being here, and we will see you next week. And for those of you who want to hang around, yes, there will be some Hogwarts Legacy in a little while. I'm going to take a break. We're going to go back. We're not stopping. So thanks again, everybody. Take it easy. Have a good night or day wherever you may be, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the power for ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your heart. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
That's why you can't, little boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.